right. Okay. Now, my headphones are a little janky. What's going on here? All right. First, I gotta do the sponsor thing. So let me do this. Head over to www.johnbartoloshow.com. Go check out all the sponsors. There's a huge list there. A lot of good companies. I appreciate everyone who supports the show, especially Gallo Technologies for the walls. I appreciate everybody at Rhino Metals for all the tables, everything there. Galco holsters. And of course, Right On Optics. I put the links in every podcast. If you guys go and check it out, go make sure you tune in, check out all the different, sponsors there. I don't do enough shout outs to some of the weekly sponsors and the people that support the show. So go check out the list. The website's all redone. So go check it out and leave a review. But anyway, today we got an amazing guest. It's going to be a lot of fun. She's getting into shooting, self-defense, conspiracy theories, everything. And the best part is we went to school together. We grew up together. Same neighborhood, same everything. So this one hits home to everybody listening. This is like gets you in the feels. So, Christina Vargas, how are you?
What up?
What's going on? So this is amazing, and it's definitely like one of those episodes that like I've been dying to do for a while because I've been kind of after you about getting together and doing this because I think that you come across people in life and you kind of fail to connect with them, and I've been living here almost 2 years now, and we just haven't connected, and finally now.
It's that Vegas thing though.
It is, isn't it?
It's just Vegas is just fast.
So this is awesome. I want to dive right in. We've known each other off and on for 20 years plus. Plus, that's the crazy fucking part. You just said that a second ago.
Shit, we're getting old.
So
man.
First, do this for everybody listening. Tell everybody what you've been up to since Olympia, since competing. Give everybody who's listening a rundown of. We grew up in East Boston, for the record. Everybody that doesn't know. People who listen to the show know. They know where I'm from. But give everybody like your pitch. Where have you been up to? What have you been going on? Because there's the juices, there's the bananas, there's the fruits. Tell everybody what's been going on.
Okay, so my last show was the Olympia 2012. I wanted to compete again, but I needed to take a break because at that time I did 25 pro shows. So I ended up going into the WWE. So I was in the WWE for a few months, but when I was in there, I had to make a decision because I was 28 years old. Am I going to have a family or be on the road? And with my growing up and my, past traumas and my life, I felt that having a family was more important to me than being on the road. So I left the WWE, and the person I left for, I married and had a baby with him. So it was the right choice. And we've been together for almost 10 years. So, you just got to make choices in life, and that's what I did. So after that, I still haven't competed. I ended up having a baby, but during this whole time, I found out that some of my illnesses from my childhood and from now really caught up with me. So some people know people that follow me, I have neurocardiosyncopy, which I've been dealing with for years.
What is it exactly?
So
you've told me before.
Basically, I think it's, what is it called? It's like the vague.
Like, what would you compare it to give people like a reference?
Okay, so.
Is it Lyme disease?
I have Lyme disease as well. That's separate.
That's separate.
So, but you know what? I do have my own theories because Lyme disease is a very...
we'll get to your theories.
Well, Lyme disease is a very hard disease to test for. And I think that's why. So a lot of your symptoms can be masked as other health problems. So sometimes I feel that type of problem that I have really is connected to the Lyme disease. But regardless, basically a lot of women that are tinier, they end up having like these blackouts where your heart actually stops because the blood can't go to your head. So you basically have like you're hypoglycemic, you have low blood pressure, and you have a low heart rate, and the blood just doesn't go to your brain fast enough. Basically, you have that like disconnect. And I've blacked out a lot. And in 2010, they were considering to put me on a pacemaker. But the doctor knew how crazy I was with fitness, that he figured that I was so strict that if I dieted correctly for my health, then he thought that I would be okay with maintaining basically the disease without needing a pacemaker. And in the bodybuilding world, you have to eliminate salt. And for me, I had to, 2,500 milligrams of sodium a day is healthy. For me, I need anywhere from, 4,000 and on just to be stabilized. And it won't really affect my body where I, will get bloated or fat, which that can happen too, but it's very precise. So that was really important. And that's where it kind of started where, man, diet is so much more than bodybuilding diet. It's like health. And I like that really manifested into something more later on. And then I found out after having the baby, because obviously when women have a baby, everyone's like, oh, your body changes. And some people take it as it changes for the worst. No, your body does change because you have this hormone in your body called relaxin when you have a baby, and your bones...
I like relaxin.
Okay. Well, your bones, they become soft and they move. So when the baby comes out, your bones are now changed. Your hips are changed, so you're going to be heavier. And you might not look heavier, but everything is going to change. And it changes for the best, but some people think it changes for the worst. And I had a lot of bad things happen to me after I had the baby, but I found out that I ended up having Lyme disease. So I had to...
And Lyme disease is the tricky one, right? Like you don't know... There's so much weird shit with it, right? Like you don't know what it does, what it doesn't do. There's a lot of strange stuff with Lyme disease.
So I had to read and research because in Western medicine, they have tested me 6 times, and every test, it's a false positive. So some doctors are like, you have MCAS. I'm like, okay, which is basically mass activation syndrome, and it looks the same as Lyme disease. It acts the same as Lyme disease. Your body does the same things as Lyme disease. Just don't take the Lyme disease protocol for Western medicine. Whatever. Well, that's not true. Anyways, so the other thing is, then they want to say, oh, maybe you have lupus, maybe you have this. And I didn't have any of those things. And when I went to like holistic medication or holistic and naturopathic medicine, in integrative wellness, that field of medicine, I did other testing and I tested positive for Lyme disease. And Western medicine doesn't want to acknowledge all of the scientific research and the things out there because there's, you can call it a conspiracy theory, but...
We're going to get to those, but...
But basically Lyme disease, if you read the book Bitten, it's basically a bioweapon. And recently, this year, in New Jersey, a state representative had brought to court that Lyme disease is, in fact, a bioweapon. And it's actually going to be in litigation. They're going to place all of the scientific research up.
Don't go there yet. Stay on you. We're going to get into the conspiracy theories
after.
Shortly.
Okay.
So you go through all this tests. You get all this stuff done. You find out how, you get all this shit going on. But you're doing fine with it. You're living with it.
Because I had to heal myself. Because the doctors couldn't help me.
I know the Lyme disease is a tricky one.
Let me explain my symptoms.
Go ahead.
So after I had the baby, I went to okay, I'm a fitness model. I did the WWE. I was in the Olympia. okay, it's time for me to get back in shape, because all of my sponsors, you know, I was at the time I was sponsored by MHP, and then I was sponsored by SciTech. Like, I have to look good because I'm a fitness model. I'm part of the fitness crew. So even though I wanted to get in shape, I was pressured to get in shape. So I got in shape in 6 months. I did all this stuff, and then I could just see my body plateau. It didn't matter how much chicken and brown rice I had. Didn't matter the bodybuilding diet. Didn't matter how strict I was, like I did for stage prepping. None of it mattered. I remember going to Germany with SciTech.
The
FIBO. And I was so bloated and in so much pain, and I couldn't eat anything. I wanted to cry. It didn't matter how strict I was dying. And after that, I was like, there's something wrong with me. I did endoscopy, colonoscopy, everything. No one could find anything. And I did what's called a food sensitivity test. I did an allergy sensitivity test. Everything popped up. I was allergic to over 100 foods.
Jesus.
And it started in the stomach. So it started in the stomach. And finally, I worked with the foods. I'm like, okay, let me eliminate all the foods that I have problems with. Let me eliminate dairy. Let me eliminate gluten. So I did that. I felt better, but it wasn't 100%. Then all of a sudden, I started having the passing out thing happen again. So now my heart's coming into play again. I'm blacking out. I'm like, man, I don't really want a pacemaker. That's
serious deal.
Yeah, my daughter is like, at that time, she's like 1.5, and I'm like, if I fall down the stairs with her, I'm gonna
She's
hurt her.
beautiful, by the way.
Thank you. I'm like, if I fall down the stairs with this child, like, I'm gonna hurt her. I'm like, I have to get my health together. And my husband works like 14-hour days. Like, he's never home, so I have to take care of myself as well as take care of this child. I'm like, this is serious. Okay, then I started having neuropathy issues. So I have Restless Arm Syndrome. Where my hands and my feet, they turn numb. I can't grab anything for half an hour at a time. It was bad. So I got into more of the holistic medication, the holistic stuff. I seen it work. The neuropathy calmed down, the bloating was controlled, the stomach stuff was getting controlled, and I ended up reaching out to this holistic doctor in New Jersey. She took me over there. We did some trade. She helped me out to stabilize myself, and then, I moved on. Still having problems, still finding myself, but she helped me out tremendously to start my journey in the holistic world. Then, in Vegas, I ended up getting like one of the hottest girls, and I got a trophy and everything. And like a few years ago at Encore Beach Club, and during this time, I broke out in hives for 3 weeks. We're talking, I look like a leper. So from the top to my bottom now, my body is...
Did you feel like you were going to have to let go of the whole fitness deal? Like not, you know what I mean? Like at a stage level. Like were you like...
Oh, I already let it go.
Yeah.
Because as soon as... I mean, like, my body was always staged like 2 to 3 weeks from stage level.
Right.
But like, there was no way I could go on stage because I'm at some points I thought I was going to die because I would get like 104 temperature from just eating something.
Right.
And then I would be sick for 24 hours. Like the list would go on of things that were just crazy out of norm stuff that no one would think. And for the 3 weeks that I had hives, like I'd wake up every day like ready to cry, and they wanted to put me on Chromium and all these crazy pills. I mean, they wanted to put me on like 36 pills. And I was like, I'm not going to live like this.
Yeah.
And then I
crazy.
figured out how to get the hives, how to control the hives holistically, how to control my body. And at that time, the doctors told me that my liver looked like a drug addict's liver.
Jesus.
And during the time, I'm in Metro trying to get into the academy.
Right.
And the first time I take the test, I have 104 temperature. I'm like, it was just like, there was just
like a series of errors.
Yeah, so I mean, I didn't end up making it after 8 months, but at that time, it was a good thing that I didn't make it because I really need to focus on my health. Like I was always like fighting everything. Like I'm fine, but I wasn't fine.
Right.
And I really had to like focus in on it.
No, I get it. I mean, that's a long journey of shit to deal with, to go through. especially when you're in a community like the fitness community.
And you have to, you're online as a social presence and people think you're healthy. And it's like, just because I look good on the outside doesn't
And you're not
mean-
ready to talk about it necessarily, right?
No.
Like you're not ready to put it out there because you're dealing with it internally. So it's people don't understand that about social media. That's the first thing we have to conquer here. So what people don't understand is like you could be dealing with all this shit internally and at home and whatever else, and you may not be ready to put that out there publicly and talk about it. And that's always a hard thing when you have a social media presence, because you're always trying to put up the best and brightest moment of your day. And people say, oh, fuck that, just post, whatever. But you don't know the answers yet, so you don't want to put stuff out there, because then what happens is everybody starts chiming in as like an armchair quarterback. Everybody knows everything and they're experts.
So I did put it out there because I wanted people to see me struggle. I wanted people to see the journey, but it was hard because the first and foremost thing everyone wants to hit me with is because you have your breast implants.
Anything.
And
Yeah.
I was like, listen, I've seen every doctor.
It's the Botox.
And I'm not saying that the breast implants didn't contribute or don't contribute. I'm saying at that moment in time, even if I did try to fix the breast implants, I have so many other problems that going into surgery would actually throw my body more for a loop, and I could go into sepsis. So like people, they speak out of their ass. And that's what's frustrating.
Everybody's an expert online.
Right.
So
everybody.
you get to this point, and as I said, beautiful family, by the way.
Thank you.
On another note, you get to this point, and one of the things I love about having you in is, and this is how this all started, so everybody listening understands. I wanted to take you down to understand Christina's journey and everything she's been through, because she was, we glaze over this, but you were a top level fitness competitor. There's no question. And you go through this crazy journey of figuring out your body later in life, which isn't easy, which sucks. It's a nightmare. And we can spend all day on that. But you're also an amazing conspiracy theorist. And that's where I want to get into this, an amazing one. So peeling into the layers of what that is, you mentioned the Lyme disease and having your theories there, but let's touch on this. I want to ask you, before we get into it.
All right, get ready.
What's your favorite conspiracy theory?
Are we talking like the Illuminati and the elite?
Oh, God. The lizard people, the subterranean lizard people? What are we talking about?
You know what? I'm not there yet, but I haven't pushed it aside. I think the hardest part with everything going through my life is the journey, right? Like it started with, as you know, obviously my high school sweetheart that you went to school with died from, getting a clip in his chest, to my childhood being absolute shit, which is a whole nother story. But I went through life having to, I have all these.
That's a separate podcast, but.
Yeah, it's a separate podcast, but you have to, I've been trying to find myself spiritually the whole time, right? So the separate podcast can go into all that craziness that brings me into my conspiracy theorist stuff. But, it's trying to find out your I wouldn't say religion, but your belief. And after everything, reading tarot cards, premonitions, all this drama.
What's the gateway drug to conspiracy theories? Is the gateway drug horoscopes? Does it start with horoscopes and then lead to...
No, it's...
Or is it the tarot card? Well, where does it start? The psychics?
For me, it started with the Lyme disease.
So that's where okay.
Because I already had, I was already into that, holistic and spiritual realm. Because that's, where it goes. But then it was are you kidding me? Lyme disease is, pretty much a bioweapon? What the F? Okay, we got to get into this shit. Then it's just, you just see everything connect. And you're like, the government's been hiding everything.
Everything.
What the hell?
Before we get into that, have you watched The Vow on HBO?
I have not.
You gotta watch this thing.
Oh, God.
So it's about this dude who got a cult.
Oh,
it's
boy.
fucking crazy. And the chicks join it, and they end up getting branded on their snatch. It's the craziest shit ever. I'm serious. I'm not being funny. It's called The Vow. It's the craziest shit ever. And they pay money. And these are Hollywood people that got nothing going on. It's kind of like the whole Scientology thing, but you got to watch it. It's The Vow on HBO. That'll blow your mind. Go ahead.
Okay. So the other thing that got me into it too is, as being like an elite athlete, you see things. I'm not going to say what I've seen. I'm not going to say it.
Say it.
No, I won't say it. You see things in each industry, and you see how people rise to the top. And when you see that and you connect everything, you're like, well, you know what? It's not really a conspiracy if it's really happening. Like, I see things, kind of believe it.
Well, there's a lot of weird shit. We could spend all day in the fitness industry. There's weird
that's
shit.
why I'm not-
Yeah,
I'm
there's
not gonna
weird
bother
shit in the
it.
fitness industry.
I'm not going to bother with it. But I'm saying, like, when you go through life and you see stuff, you're just like...
You can't unsee it?
Yeah, you're like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to discredit this. I'm going to research it myself. Because knowledge is power. And I feel like this is the problem with conspiracy theorists. And this is what I'm going to say. Everyone has to come into their own. You can't force somebody to believe what you believe or expect them to believe it. You can just give them the information, and if they want to look at it or they want to read it or they want to like get into it, that's on their spiritual journey. Like, I don't ever want to force somebody to feel a certain way. Like, I don't like that certain conspiracy theories like wake up. Granted,
They push it on you.
yeah, they push it. Like,
They're pushers.
I've said wake up to some things because it's in your face. Like,
Right.
you see it. Like, you can't unsee the masks. All right? The CDC has this, and then you have that. If the particles for fire is bigger than the virus, like, wake up. That I will say, wake up. It's right in front of your face.
Right. No, you're not wrong.
But-
some stuff is glaring.
It's like blatant. But if there's stuff that's not so blatant and people are like, oh, wake up to the Illuminati or the elite, like, they may not be there yet. So I'm not gonna like, I don't want to force anything on anybody.
So that's good. That's a healthy approach, honestly, because you can't. So here's my thing with conspiracy theories. I absolutely believe there was more than one gunman that killed Kennedy.
Absolutely.
I think people who think otherwise are fucking crazy. So I take a hard line with some things because I'm like, there's just knowing. So I'm sticking to a realm I know.
Of
knowing
course.
firearms, knowing there's no way that guy reloaded that. There's just no way. There's too many. And we don't know enough about his training. Let's put it that way.
and
But-
that goes back to each person having their own experience.
Right. So here's the thing. I think there's always going to be things we disagree with. And I think disagreeing is the gateway drug to potentially saying, and by disagree, I mean like something that's prominent in the news or in society that we know of, not something like we're disagreeing about, but like something that's like bigger that we may disagree with. So that leads to kind of like, well, what's the theory? Like, well, what do you think? And now with like the rise of all these true crime podcasts and everything that's out there, everybody loves sitting around and kind of having a conspiracy. Now with COVID, forget it. Now, like, everybody
I'm so sick of COVID.
is jumping in. The COVID thing's ridiculous.
I'm so sick.
But-
Like, it's real, but I'm so fucking sick of it.
It's ridiculous from the standpoint of, like, they've milked this thing as long as they can. Look, we know some people die. We know some people get sick. In the end, when we get the true and real numbers, we know it's not worse than a flu. We know that it's, they've politicized it. Is the short thing. Somebody's going to write a book in the end of this. It's going to be amazing.
So it's like that thing, and this is where I've been so sick. So if anybody should be scared of the virus, it would be somebody like me with a compromised
with a pre-existing conditions.
compromised immune system. It is the host, not the terrain, in every single sense, from the coronavirus to the flu to cancer. It is the host, not the terrain. And if you cannot fix your body internally, you will never be able to get out of anything. And
No, you're
I'm
right.
so irritated that, yes, Corona has affected a lot of people's lives that do have compromised immune systems. They have, it hurt families. But people aren't realizing that internal health needs to be addressed, and we're not addressing it. And it's frustrating. I don't want to see somebody promote McDonald's, go get a COVID test. No, F yourself with the McDonald's and your COVID test, okay? Like, we should be vitamin C'ing. We should be getting our gut correct. We shouldn't be eating processed foods and sugars. Like, let's really talk about what's important here. Like, I'm in the health and fitness industry, right? I'm in the holistic world. If I can't focus on health and nutrition and really preach that to my viewers,
you're not living it.
Who am I?
Right. No, I agree. I like that. It's the host. I like that. That's a great way to put it. And to be perfectly honest, if we're going to get into the COVID thing, let's get into it. So as far as the COVID thing goes, here's my issue with it. And this gets into the gun control stuff and everything else.
Hell yeah.
Once you give an inch, they take a mile.
Absolutely.
And what people don't understand, and this is important for everybody to kind of wrap their head around as it pertains to conspiracy theories, as it pertains to mindset, because people are the first to say, oh, well, they're just, a conspiracy theorist nut, or they're a gun nut, or they're this or they're that. The mindset comes from, you can't give somebody that inch, because then what it turns into is, first it starts with masks, then it starts with sheltering, then it's you can't run your business, then it's you can't do this and you can't do that. Pretty soon you have people that have spent 20 years to build businesses, and we know a lot of them.
What about the Patriot Act that came into play with 9/11?
Back home. That's a whole separate podcast. But in all actuality, the politicizing of COVID, particularly in many states and in many areas, you can't hinder people's ability to earn a living and not expect consequences, repercussions. And I think the president's handled it beautifully by letting the Democratic states destroy themselves, and that's what's going on. But here's what I understand, Christina. I want to get your take on this. These people, in media, especially on the left side, they think like we don't have the internet or like we don't know what's going on. It's almost like this. What I find so funny is they try to steer the narrative. It's a peaceful protest, or it's this, or it's that. And this isn't really a conspiracy theory so much it is just blatant stupidity on the other side.
Blatant. So here's the thing about the whole thing, because a lot of people come at me like, oh, you're such a Trump supporter. Listen, Trump, I'm going to vote for Trump, and I am a Trump supporter. But the reason why I'm a Trump supporter is because of his actions. He is not a politician. He's going to speak not appropriately like politicians speak, because politicians speak appropriately because they're deceiving. So that's why I like Trump. He has action. He's done things. Granted, there are some things I disagree with about Trump. I mean, Trump gave money to Gavi, which is Bill Gates's vaccine fund. I don't like that. I don't agree with that. But he's done a lot of great things. So you gotta count. It's like you have like this bubble thing where you have the pros and cons.
Pros and cons, yeah.
Yeah, pros and cons. And Trump has a lot of pros. And people like, oh, this Trump did this, Trump did that. Well, right now, you know what? I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt for all the good stuff he's done. And I'm gonna hope and pray, and I'm gonna pray that he does the best for us, and I pray that he does get president, because I know that he's done good. And that's all we can wish for. It
comes down to voting for the best candidate, right? So whenever there's an election, the thing people don't look at is you can't,
they're human. Everyone's human.
Well, here's the thing. You look at the Democratic field, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. That's why I'm pausing. I don't want to go to a rabbit hole of getting into the Democratic field of candidates.
Yeah.
It was the worst crop of candidates you could have ever mustered together.
Of course.
Bernie probably would have been a viable in terms of them winning. Okay, I'm not talking about who I liked, didn't like. Talking about
of course.
Bernie would have been probably the best viable candidate for them to put up.
I mean, Biden needs to be put in
because Bernie's energetic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He had the energy to do it. I liked Tulsi Gabbard. I think a lot of people did. I think she had some good points. I think she was, but she just represented too small of a state. She represented Hawaii. It's just too small of a footprint, and they didn't like her. So they ran her out of town. So they end up with Biden.
Oh my God. Who's to be in a psych ward.
Well, who's a disaster, right? So he's unelectable. And let me not say that. Elizabeth Warren's unelectable. Biden is one of those people that's he's so all over the place, and we're in an era where you can't get away with that. With Donald Trump, what I explain to people is what you're getting.
Of course.
With Biden, if he's in a room full of black people, he's going to say, I'm the blackest person in the room, blah, 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 to pander. And if you're in a room of white people, he's going to say what white people want to hear. If you're in a room of purple people, he's going to say what the purple people want to hear. And that's how he is.
But at the end of the day, he needs to focus on his health. And he needs to, and he's being
he's definitely not well.
No, and he's basically just being told what to say.
Well, we know that. The question becomes, where does he stand and what does he stand for? And to this day, I don't think we know.
No, we don't know.
And that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is the whole campaign has been built on, fear. And if you elect me, I will make your life better. But I'm not going to tell you the how. It's just because I'm a better option than Donald Trump. And that's not a campaign. That's not the way to run a campaign. So the whole COVID thing.
Well, I'm really against the fact that he supports people that when officers get shot, they want to block emergency rooms, and no one wants to speak on that. I mean, I'm sorry, all my friends, a lot of my friends are cops, sergeants and lieutenants, and I have a big problem with that, a big problem.
I think a lot of people do. And I think that there's this overwhelming, majority of people out there that don't fully understand exactly what's going on with these protests. I mean, I don't think these people are voters. I don't believe that they're voters. I don't believe that they...
I lost friends. I lost a lot of friends that are black because of this. Best friends I've been friends with.
Did they tell you why?
Yeah, because of my views for 12 years. You don't believe in Black Lives Matter? I'm like, no, I don't believe in you shooting cops. Because I don't think that every single cop is a bad person. Because there are good people in this world, and there are bad people in this world, and they hide in sheep's clothing. They're wolves. They come. They're foxes. They lie. They deceive. You don't know all the people. You're gonna meet friends that you're friends with for years, and then all of a sudden the skeletons come out. You can't. We're human. So for you to go and say all cops are bad, it's the media narrative, and I hate it. I hate it.
Well, how do you fix it?
You know what? It's empathy, man. People need to have some empathy. People need to see what's going on. And that's another thing, too, because I get that. Because of all this, I wanted to here's the thing. I applied for Metro back in 2018, and I wanted to make sure that the only time I used a gun was when I got into the academy. Well, after all this shit going on and the fact that when I was going to reapply again, I was like, I should probably just learn how to use it. I started to get into guns because of that reason. But with all this stuff, I'm like, I need to learn how to use a gun to protect my own home, because if somebody comes to break in because they don't have any food or water because they can't work, there are so many riots. I mean, we're at risk here. We have to train for the apocalypse.
You're not wrong. You're 100% not wrong. And people I do wish more people had that understanding that if somebody does kick in your door, they're not kicking in your door to, come hang out with you. They're kicking in your door to take your food, rape you, kill you, take what you have. And you're not wrong in saying that. I think it's shocking for some people to hear when they do hear it. And I think that people say, oh, these people are crazy or this or that. I try to explain all the time, Christina, gun owners, and especially to people back home that grew up where we grew up.
I know, because they don't want us to have guns.
They don't get it.
No.
So I always say, you have to understand something, guys. Gun owners are some of your best citizens.
Of course.
They are going to follow every law to the T. They're amazing people. They're salt of the earth, and they're going to do everything right because they value their rights. And I get into it on a Facebook post. I don't chime in. I just do the post and let people go nuts underneath. But I posted, just to see from back home who's, in favor of guns and who isn't, who's a fan of the Second Amendment was the way I put it, and I just let people talk. I don't chime in.
Yeah.
And you get all these people, and it's interesting to see people's opinion and people's take. And a lot of people say the same thing. They say, I'm in favor of guns.
Just not ARs.
Well, no, they'll say if there's a certain amount of training, right? They'll say if there's a certain amount of training. And I always say well, is there training for the First Amendment? Do you understand sometimes you brought up empathy, what people say, how people react, what they do, and it's online's a big example of that. Online you have, these people that just go up there and they say whatever they want. They'll say whatever. I do think that the gun control thing is a great example of when you give an inch, a mile is taken. every time that you give something, and that's why the masks and everything else hit home for me, not so much in a conspiracy theory way, because when have you ever seen anybody, any lawmaker, say, you know what, we really needed that gun control thing, but we don't need it now, so, and this is what they don't understand. All these people that are buying guns now in this whole situation, they don't understand that when somebody buys a gun and they have the right to bear arms, it's not a right they tend to give back willingly. So all these politicians understand there's millions and millions and millions of new gun owners. Do they really think like when this all dies down
they're going to do a buyback?
And yeah, well, they're going to be like, oh yeah, like I don't need that anymore. Let me just give that back. It doesn't work that way. Like they're a little delusional, and I think they made a very big mistake. And this is a message for the left. I think they made a very big mistake politicizing COVID-19. I think it was a big mistake because I think a lot of people that were on the fringe with the gun ownership thing, you can't go in a gun store, you can't get around.
No way.
So I think they made a huge
65 cents a round.
I think they made a huge miscalculation, Christina. So in my quote unquote conspiracy theory mind, I think the politicizing of COVID-19 was one of the biggest mistakes the left could have ever made. And I think they pushed it a little too far. And now you have millions and millions of new gun owners out there. And that is not a right they're going to give back. They're not going to be like, you know what, I bought this brand new Glock. I don't need it anymore. I'm just going to give it back. You know what, it's been great. It doesn't work that way. And they don't understand that. And I think they're making a huge mistake. And I brought this up the other day to someone. I was talking to a friend actually back home. I said, do you understand that there's about 6 or 8 million new gun owners out there that we have no data on, that Democrats have no data on? So I said, what I don't understand is why they keep banging the drum for gun control when you don't know anything about these new gun owners.
Nothing.
Let's say they're brand new, on the fence people on how they vote. You have to win the office before you can make the changes. And I think that the left makes a giant mistake making that a giant issue. You never see the right make pro-choice an issue, because they know that some people are pro-choice out there. They're pro-life, they're pro-choice. There's a lot of Republicans that are pro-choice Republicans. I just wish Democrats would understand the gun control thing is not a hill to die on. It's a terrible hill to die on.
Well, I travel a lot out of the U.S. for SciTech, and I have a lot of friends in like UK and Australia, and a lot of my Australia friends are like, don't ever give up your guns.
Right.
And it's because they don't have any. So the cops over there there's so much tyranny. Whereas here, they're not going to do that because they know there's so many. No one's going to come into anybody's house with a gun for the simple fact that we have them. Like if somebody breaks into our house, well,
it's very hard to invade a country that's an armed citizenry. That's another factor. So it's very hard. I mean, where would you land? You want to land in Texas? It's not a good idea. Right? So it's a very hard thing. Florida, it's probably even worse. They'd probably land in California because that's the hardest place to get guns, and probably the state with the most people that are anti-gun. But here's the thing that people don't understand, especially in the defunding and everything that's going on, Christina. People don't understand that the first person you're going to call when you have a problem is somebody with a gun.
Absolutely.
It's the first person you're going to call. So anytime you're confronted with extreme violence, that's what people do not get. Now, one of the bigger issues I see, this country, everything, you have a young one, family, the whole bit, dealing with is how we come out of this, how we build out of this, and what that path looks like. I don't know the answer to that. You may have better insight. I'm just a dude. I can load up the car and be gone. How do you see this playing out, and what's the dream scenario for you?
That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't see a dream scenario. I don't see a dream scenario
Nightmare.
if Trump wins or loses. I see it getting worse quickly, but I don't see it winning or I mean, that's another thing people don't realize. This is a worldwide thing. This has to do with pedophilia.
Oh, we're going to get to that. I want to get to that.
It has to do with tyranny. It has to do with everything. And I'm trying to the one thing that I want to do is teach my daughter how to read and write quickly, because I want her to be able to do anything if I'm not here in this life. Like I want her to be, I'm preparing for her in a not morbid sense that she can
Terrifying.
that she can do whatever she can without me. You know, like I want to teach her these things. I mean, my husband thinks I'm crazy. He puts up with it, but he thinks I'm nuts because I mean every week I'm like, okay, how many rounds do we need? Like I want like another 1,000 rounds. Can we get some? Can we get some more? I need some water. I want some dry food. I mean, we got food storages. I'm trying to get like we got fires over here. Everyone's like, well, the world's not gonna end. I'm like, you don't know that. I'm like, we're living in Revelation times. If you believe in the Bible, we're living in it.
It's interesting. It's interesting you put it that way. I think, the pedo thing is crazy, and I wanted to get to that. So we'll change gears from COVID. The pedo thing
makes me sick.
Well, let's start with Hollywood, right? I think Hollywood is ripe for a huge blow up and a huge explosion. And I say that because I just see everything happening right now as it plays out, and I see everything moving to Netflix, to streaming, everything's kind of being toned down. I just believe there's going to be no more movie stars, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that whole veil of like, I'm a movie star, everybody's seeing these people for what they are. They're fucking weirdos. They are weirdos. Most of them, the majority of them, are total weirdos. And I think the good ones know that the majority of weirdos are ruining it.
Look at Mel Gibson.
They're ruining it. And let me say this. You have these people going to Greece to get citizenship. You have these people hiding. There's all kinds of, everybody's like scattering like ants. Like fucking ants. And I just think it's becoming a thing. So I see, there's always going to be movies and entertainment and everything else, but it all comes down to content, right? So you can get content anywhere. And I think as time goes on, you're already seeing this. People are making, major plays for podcasts, for streaming, YouTube, everything. I just don't see that big time movie star thing being a thing anymore, because what everybody's realizing is these people have too much power and too much money and too much time on their hands.
Well, the other thing that COVID links that they messed up with is there has been no movie theaters open.
None.
So they kind of hurt themselves in that sense. Like you still want to focus on these stars and celebrities, but there's no movies running. I mean, we're talking about almost a year in.
You're not wrong.
No one sees that strange? That's pretty strange.
They're starting to get some of them open. I know that. Even around here, they're starting to open some of them, but it's too little too late. I mean, the industry's crippled. And the pedo thing, I definitely feel, when the book is written, whoever writes the book, whether it's about COVID or the pedos, the Epstein thing, everything that's going on, I just think there's too many dominoes to fall in that. And as time goes on, it's going to be really hard to differentiate who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. And what happens in those instances, everybody gets lumped in.
Well, you see the meme about how they had like this, the nail salon had awesome cameras for Nancy Pelosi, but they had no cameras for Epstein's jail cell.
That's so funny.
I mean, come on.
That's so funny. That's true.
I mean, it's like, come on here. He's like an A-list criminal, like done some horrific stuff.
What do you think happened?
Oh, he's ran away. They let him go free in another island.
That's an interesting theory. I haven't heard anyone float that. You think they let him go?
Hell yeah.
Seriously, you think they let him go?
Hell yeah. I think they let him go to do his thing because, I mean, you got to think he was working with Gates. He has euthogenics going on. He could have impregnated multiple children that are now women, I mean, like, we don't know what's going on under the scenes. That's where my thing is. Like, you got to really think about it. Like, how is it? Listen, it's a conspiracy theory at that point. There is no proof. But the question is, how is it that Nancy Pelosi at a nail salon gets caught, and at a jail cell you don't see him? And then they show the same body. Now we're going to go into more conspiracy theories. The same medical examiner for George Floyd.
Right.
I mean, it's just listen, I'm not saying that was right. I'm saying it's just strange. Like, I feel like the government's playing on our heartstrings here. And that's where it's like we're losing our friends because of what they're seeing. It's like that thing where You see somebody do the end result, but you don't see you see a woman killing a man, but you never see maybe the man raping her. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I get where you're going.
Like that, let's really unveil the curtain here. Like, let's see what's behind it.
Well,
and that's where Hollywood plays in, because if you're seeing this, like Hollywood, that's all they do. They play games. They show you what you want to see. They know how to. They're actors. They know how to play on that. You know, they have so much years of improv and all these things. Like, they know how to do that. And normal people can't connect the dots. They're like, oh man, I can't see that. Now, being in the WWE, I understand that side of the world.
Yeah.
You know, I get that. So you just never know what the truth is. And you got to really, by you doing your own research, you can formulate your own truth. And that's what's the most important. It's not what I say. It's what you want, your life experience. Like, you're into, guns. I don't know guns as good as you. So I can't get into the JFK assassination as much as you would. I know health stuff. So I'm going to get into more of a medical stuff that I research, right? And with that knowledge, you formulate your own thing. I don't want to lose my best friends that, like, I would literally do anything for because I don't support BLM. That's bullshit. I don't support BLM because I don't support killing cops and destroying your own community. Like, what? Like, really? I mean, it's not about black people. You got black cops. You got black business owners, and they support Trump. But if they support Trump, they're not good anymore. Like, this is insane. To me, it's insane. It's insane. I mean, literally, one of my best friends, he's on Metro. He's black. And he would do anything for anybody. He is the most giving human you would ever meet in your life. He's the nicest human. Like, I can't. And that brings up another fact about the whole BLM and why I really don't support it and why they're talking about white supremacy and all this drama. My daughter is 4. She doesn't know the difference. She might look at a person that's a different color, and she doesn't look at them like that. She has black dolls, white dolls, Asian dolls. Like, she just looks at every single person as human. It is the adults that instill this disgusting view of life into them. And the more we put it on the media, the more we show it, the more we're like, oh, you have to acknowledge the black people or the LBG, whatever community. We gotta put this in the school. We gotta teach them. No, we gotta teach the parents, because the parents are negligent.
You go, girl.
Because it's bullshit. My daughter does not know the difference, and I will not take that innocent from her. Because all she knows, because the people she's around, which is my friends, and like I said, he's a black cop, she looks at him as a hero. And then she looks at her father as a hero. She doesn't see the difference. And that's why it's like, I think it's really sad that they're bringing our children involved in this.
Well, that's a hard one.
It is a hard one.
It's a hard one because the children is, I know this sounds corny and I don't mean to sound like fucking Whitney Houston, but the children are innocent in the whole thing.
They are.
And really, them living through this is going to leave tremendous scars and trauma and all the different things. I know it would for me. And if people think otherwise, imagine, not having, whether it's your prom, your senior year of sport, whatever it is, all these different things at all different age groups, not just high school, everything. You don't get to have that whole year of friendships, relationships, all wiped out, all lost. So it's very difficult. It's very hard for them to pick up the pieces, go back in, and figure this out. And I think some states are really getting it wrong, and they're not understanding how that's going to leave them in the state of that's going to leave them in. So for that, I struggle with too, because I don't think the cure is worse than the disease.
Agreed. There's a lot of suicides. People are always on tablets and phones. They can't connect to human beings. They have to pretend to be something else. I mean, it's horrific. Like, she was going to a school over here. It was a private school. And they finally opened up back, and it was camp time. And I called the school, and I said, hey, I want to know if they're social distancing, because I've read medical studies. It does really traumatic things to people to social distance. Like, it's very bad for their mental health. It's very bad. Okay, I don't want my daughter social distancing, and I don't want her to wear a mask. I'm against the mask for health reasons. Whatever, you can go on my Facebook, social media, and I can give you a bunch of medical studies. Have at it, don't care. I'm against it. I want my daughter to breathe in the oxygen that God gave us, and I want her to have her own herd immunity and do whatever she needs to do and build her immune strength herself. When I went there and they said to me that everything was fine for her age group, I believed them. And she was there for 3 days, and I was a bad mom. And I'm going to say why I was a bad mom, because the whole time we're in lockdown, I'm like, I need to work, I need to do this, I need to do that, and I'm complaining out loud, which I shouldn't have done. And she felt responsible for me not working. And that's from somebody who's usually aware of things, but I wasn't aware of that because I was stressed out. And parents are not perfect. So here I am giving this to my daughter unintentionally. And when she went to my mom's house on the 3rd day and they asked her how school was, she was hysterical crying. She hated school. She couldn't touch her friends. Her friends were wearing maskies, she called them. They made her go outside, rotated by themselves in the playground. They had to do quiet play. I was like, she's out of there. I am not going to put my daughter into this prison. And I had to, gather her other friends, talk to other parents, and we created our own little schooling for my little 4-year-old because it's not so severe, she's not so old right now. And it's just like, what are the teenagers going through? What is this?
Yeah.
Like, this is traumatic if my 4-year-old, but my 4-year-old said to me, Mommy, I just wanted you to work. I know you need to. And it's like, wow, I feel so bad that I literally put my anxiety, my pain onto my child. And that's like a minimum, that's like a small spectrum. What are these parents who are drinking, who are overworked, who have nothing? They're putting all of that pain on their children. This lockdown is killing us. And to not allow our children, who are asymptomatic for most of the thing, read the studies, please read the studies. Anyways, our children cannot transmit these diseases, but regardless, you are not letting our children go into schools, masking them. We're putting on learning at a distance. I'm done with it. I'm done. I'm gonna homeschool my own child. I'm gonna bite the bullet. I'll suffer with the money. I don't care what I need to do. We'll work harder. I'm not gonna let my child suffer because they're the future to fixing all this madness and bullshit that we're dealing with now. Because the parents that are in the government, I don't care, Biden's mom, I don't care, whoever.
Biden's mom, she used to be 1,000.
I don't care. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the way they taught these children that are now adults and older people, they really fucked them up. No empathy, no love, no nothing. This is disgusting. Because I would never bring my child in a world of that. If my child saw somebody hurt, she's going to go help them. And that scares me because I know how evil this world can be. Especially with the grooming of pedophiles and all of these things. It's scary. Because, I mean, I had a good friend say, you shouldn't have your daughter on the internet anymore. I'm like, I understand where you're going with that, but I'm already like, I have like almost 3 million followers on Facebook, a shit ton of followers on Instagram. I can't have them unsee my daughter now.
Yeah, this social media and kids thing is a whole nother topic. And, did you see the Netflix thing?
Oh, that posted tons of that.
I want to get your thoughts on that.
I posted tons of that stuff. I actually, if it's not in the 24-hour period, which, you know what, I'm going to add a highlight for all of you.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a highlight because there was a friend of mine, she posted what a psychologist said about it. And it wasn't about showing the explicit content. It was about the grooming the children. And grooming means showing that the cool kids are the ones that are half naked. And this goes back to when we were in high school, because I was really an outcast in high school, and I had a really hard time in high school. I had girls put gum in my hair. I quit the cheerleading team because I was more athletic than them.
I had girls put gum in my hair too.
I mean, I was really secluded. I was really bullied. I think that's why I care more about this pedophilia and the bullying now, because of what I went through during my childhood in high school. And they're grooming these kids. And it's disgusting to see that being cool and accepted, you have to sexualize yourself. You have to, you can't just be like who you want to be. Like, you can't just go run in the mud and just be and have fun. Like, you can't play with nature and watch a butterfly. You can't be a nerd and read a book. Like, I have given up so much of my life, like years, not reading. And I'm like, because the whole time I was told I was stupid because of the way I looked. And I realized I'm not stupid. I can actually read. And it took me somebody actually giving me a book. I mean, the first book that was given to me was the Bitten book. And I was like, wow, this is going to take like 100 days for me to read. And I read this book in 2 days. And I was like, man, I really have to teach people that they need to stop calling themselves stupid, and people need to stop portraying that on their children and adults, because that's why we're in this mess.
I totally agree with you with the grooming. 100%. You have my full support in that. That's 100% what goes on. And I think that whether it's, everybody's got their opinion in the Netflix thing. We know what that is. But the grooming thing is very frightening. And you do see that. That's tremendously frightening, especially when you see parents on board with it.
Well, the other thing that comes in that people say about the grooming, they're like, oh, well, cuties. There's other things, too, like tiaras and toddles and tiaras.
Toddles and tiaras.
And I agree. We're making it a bigger deal now because of the election. We're making a bigger deal now because of COVID. We're making a bigger deal now because there's pedophiles being basically, what's the word for it? I totally forgot. They're being arrested, I guess you could say, all over the world. So, yes, there are a lot of other films that we allowed ourselves to see, our children to see, and that has been grooming, which is why now a lot of people that are conspiracy theorists are like, we got to cancel Netflix, we got to stop watching this stuff, because now we're like, we can't unsee this shit. Because once your eyes are open and you're awake, you can't unsee it, which is why Hollywood is falling.
Well, I have my theories on Hollywood. I think Hollywood is getting, the veil of Hollywood's being lifted, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that people see behind the curtain, and I think, you want my honest opinion, I think it's too many people with too much money, with time on their hands, with too much power and too much influence, and they want to flex on people, and they want to have that control on people. And that whole thing I was watching on The Vow about this cult called Nexium. And it's funny because I was saying this last night. There wasn't even like these giant A-list celebrities in it. Like, it was like the girl from Smallville was in it, and she's looking at like 40 years, like this girl.
I heard about
that. Yeah. So the whole thing was like, it was like this cult with this hierarchy and these people like servants, and they ended up whacking them with like racketeering. They ended up whacking them with all these charges. But what it came down to is, I think these people in Hollywood, they like to hide behind the veil of like, I'm an artist. And, you know, it's kind of like, we're in 2020, right? I don't care. You brought this up earlier about your daughter, the innocence. I'm at a point, like, honest to God, and you know where we grew up and how harsh it was. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're purple. I don't care about any of those things. I don't care what you are. I truthfully do not care. But there's a double standard, right? Oh, but you don't understand, like, they're an artist, and like, this is what like, it's always been that way in Hollywood, with that pushing of the limits of sexualizing and putting people in positions that it's completely unhealthy, it's completely unsafe, to be perfectly honest, and putting people in these precarious positions, whether it's for roles, whether it's in the roles, whether it's in the moment, all the different things. And I think now with the internet, the access to information, there's nowhere to hide anymore, is the honest to God answer. And I think the veil's being lifted over a lot of these people, and it's like, no, just because you're in Hollywood doesn't mean like you can prance around and, you know, walk around and have like people that just follow you around that are like slaves, and they, you know, it's like, they're always, what gets me, Christina, is they're always like shocked when they're arrested. Like, what do you mean? Like, oh, you know, like, this isn't okay. Like, no, motherfucker. Like the Epstein thing. He targeted, okay, down and out females and was paying $200 for a massage. What girl in their right mind is going and doing that unless they have had experienced extreme trauma or had been through a really fucked up upbringing? And that's what he targeted. And at some point, how no one along the way was like, this is not good. Like, nothing about this is healthy. Like, they interviewed like the gardeners, they interviewed like all these people. Nothing about that was healthy. And even in the vow thing and the Nexium thing, how it even gets that far is what blows my mind.
Money.
Like, there you go. There you go.
Plain and simple, money.
Yeah.
And we know that. And that's why these celebrities are getting away with it, because they have a shit ton of money. I mean, I had a
tilt the mic in front of you.
I had a guy the other day message me, and he's like, why are you so against LeBron? And it's like, I'm against people that have public stature. And
platform, yeah.
You know, and they don't speak on both evils. Like, speak about your truth or how you feel about Black Lives Matter and how horrific you think it is. But then speak about, like, you shouldn't be killing people. Like, the pedophilia shit shouldn't be going on. Like, speak about the horrific stuff. Like, the thing that I don't understand is people will see, somebody, George Floyd get the knee, and then people will see 30,000 kids get found, and they're like, oh, well, that's done and over with. What do you mean it's done and over with? Well, they're convicted. No, because there's more stuff. The person with George Floyd, that was those 4 people that were involved that, yes, need to be prosecuted and whatever needs to happen with them. But there's still investigation and things going on behind the scenes with the child trafficking. Like, are we going to ignore it because somebody got arrested? It's insane to me. And it goes back to money. The money thing is a huge factor. And I think the money thing, I've said this before on this show, and I'll say it again. I think when people have money, they want power and influence. When people have power, they want influence and money. When people have influence, they want money and power. And I think all power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think what people don't understand is when you're in a position of authority over people, or perceived authority, which social media, being a movie star, certain things grant you that. Which is horrible. Right. Which, to that point, people, it's how you handle yourself. Like, we say this all the time. How you handle yourself when you have nothing and how you handle yourself when you have everything is what's going to define you. Okay? Absolutely. So if you're a multimillionaire, how do you treat the plumber, the gardener, everything is what's going to define you in life, more ways than one. And I think some people get drunk on this power or this fame or this influence. It's like people that get into like these
these crazy swinger relationships and everything else. I'm not here to judge people's lifestyle, but I'm saying how you don't see that that's going to go bad, I don't know. How you don't see that that's not going to work out, I don't know.
I'm with you on that.
So, you know, to me, sometimes it's so clear. Now, when you're paying money to fly people to an island, children, people of underage, it's almost like they think, well, that's okay, I compensated them. What they don't understand is these people aren't developed at a point where they can understand the decisions that they're making. It's like with social media now, Christine. It's like this. I know people that they think because they meet someone on social media, and I know you know people like this too. They think because they meet people on social media, they know them. And I want to talk about this for a second, right? No, it's true. They think because they follow you, they know you. And they'll say some crazy shit. Like, oh, get on a plane, come out and see me. Like, are you fucking high? or they'll say some weird shit. And this happens all the time.
All the time.
And I'm sure through your years, and I don't mean to bring it, like, I'm sure through your years of competing, everything else, and I say this because we're friends, and I know you'll share, you've probably had some weird freaky deaky people that hit you up and say, oh honey, you know, get on a plane, come to my boat, and I want to take you here and take you there, and I know because I know where you're from. You're like, what the fuck?
Over 1,000 requests.
And that's crazy.
Looking at this shit like, don't you know I'm married?
Oh, but they don't care because it's the money and the power thing, like we're saying.
Yeah, and then they'll say something arrogant like, oh, well, you only care about that shit too. I'm like, why? How do you know? Well, you just posted that. I'm like, so? Had nothing to do with any of that.
What? Like, yeah, I mean, and, you know, I think today it's a scary and terrifying time because, as you brought up, when social media first came on, the young people didn't have access to phones and to the social media the way they do. In the old days, I mean, we were in that age group of like the infancy of this. I mean, it was like fucking dial-up, you know, like you had a phone and a crank.
We had a pager.
It's not until the last 5 or 8 years that now every person, 12-year-olds have phones. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know.
And the stuff that's going on, like I have friends that have kids. We all have friends that have kids, but I have friends that have kids that are 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, 16 years old, even 20 years old now. I mean, you know, I'm old enough. But they don't realize, like, till it hits them in the face. And I've had parents tell me this, friends tell me this. I'm trying not to change the story around a little bit so it doesn't reveal anything. But they've literally told me, like, I go in my daughter's phone or my son, like, I'm like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And they don't realize, like, you don't know these people on the other end of the phone.
And that's where they're talking about the grooming.
Yep.
So, like, I posted this yesterday in my stories that they were talking about. It's like, you need to take the phones away from your children because it's the children sex texting each other, like the 12 and 13-year-olds. It's all of that. Like, even though they're doing it to each other, these devices and what they're seeing, that's like grooming them. Because when you have a pedophile, like I listened to this horrific podcast, and basically this girl was saying that she was upset with her parents, right? And during this upset, she had no one to go to. She went to the internet, and she talked to this boy that she thought was her own age. Said everything she wanted to hear, everything, whatever. She left her house in the middle of the night to meet him because she needed comfort. She found out it was a pedophile. She was slaved, raped. She didn't have her family, nothing. You just don't know. And that's where we have to watch out, where we can't give our children these tools. We have to give them knowledge about this. I don't even know when to give my child knowledge about this.
Now.
I'm like trying to like, let me just put her in, like I want to teach her like jiu-jitsu now. I want to teach her how to protect herself. Like, because it's like, she's so innocent.
You want to give her the tools.
Yeah, she's so innocent, but she's not in an innocent world.
That's a great way to put it. It's the honest to God truth. It's terrifying to me. That social media piece is terrifying to me because, you know, I look at it and I look at the lay of the land and I look at who's on it, and I can remember back, you know,
We had AOL.
Well,
We barely did that. So.
And you were terrified doing it because it was like,
oh yeah.
You know, you thought everything was bugged, and it's not as loosey-goosey as it is now. But
Remember
like,
they used to have like the phone calls you could call. Like I forget what they were.
oh fuck, you're going back.
I'm going back.
I still remember pagers. Don't even start.
I had pagers.
So, but it's terrifying, and I see what goes on, and they don't realize a picture or this or that. And I don't mean to sound like an old man, and I know I'm gonna, but that stuff is, it's scary, and you have to understand. You know, we all understand the consequences of all of our actions. And at certain ages, you know, was I dialed in at 25 understanding the consequences of my actions? No, of course not. You know, you're learning, and, you know, holding people accountable at certain ages, it's hard. You know, you're learning what's right, what's wrong, and this is an ever-changing landscape.
And you have to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, so I'm trying to give everybody grace. Everybody deserves a degree of grace in this, but educating them that, you know, what's a big deal at 17, and social media does this, where you look and you see what little Bobby Sue has down the street, or this one or that one. We all grew up in the neighborhood, and I say this all the time, Christina, we grew up poor, but we didn't know we were poor, right? Exactly. We didn't have, like, you know, East Boston was 3-deckers. You maybe had one floor. Your grandmother was on the bottom, and, you know, maybe you spent half the day with her. Like, you didn't. It wasn't like you didn't have these, like, if I ever post, like
chalk was our friend.
Chalk was our friend.
Like we played hopscotch outside.
Like that was it. And
climb trees.
You went to Burger King, like that was a big deal. Like that was, you'll laugh at because it's true. Like that was
every day.
Like,
it was like
that was
Burger
it.
King parking lot.
Yeah, that was like, you know, you made it, and I it's scary. You know, and if you went on Route 1 for dinner, it was like the come up. So
Saratoga Street.
I swear to God. But, you know, it's scary today because I couldn't imagine growing up then with everything that's available now and what people put out there. And I almost wish I missed it, don't you? You almost wish, even though, like, you've made a living off of it and other things. There's good that comes out of it. There's good. It's not all bad. But navigating it and having the brain power and the understanding to navigate it is the hard part. And you have to stay very, very grounded. And you have to learn, and we've all learned the hard way.
Oh, yeah.
To navigate that slope. And it's a slippery slope. And what happens is people prey on that. And we see it now being commoditized through things like OnlyFans and everything else.
Somebody told me that.
It's being commoditized now.
Like, are you going to join OnlyFans now? I'm like, what is that? For what? And they're like, well, because, you know, to make money. I'm like, no, I'm good.
I know OnlyFans, in fairness to them, and I don't know the company, they're making a push to get away from the sexualized content because they want to be legit, right? They don't want to be viewed as like a glorified porn site. So they're making a push towards that. And they've even reached out to podcasts, like to put podcasts on it and stuff.
They better not hit me up because I'm against that.
So I know that they're trying to clean it up, whether or not they will. And I wish they would, because it would be great to have a centralized location to to monetize certain things. Like you could have a cooking show on it and you could charge like whatever. But unfortunately, there's that insatiable thirst of people to want more, to want more, to want more, and that's what leads them to do erratic things. People don't understand the consequences of their actions when it's in a DM box or it's in a this or it's in a that, and they don't understand the repercussions that can come along with that or the potential trauma that can accompany that. And people just don't wrap their head around what potentially maybe could be going on in there, and that's what's super, super, super scary at a time when all this pedo shit and everything else is coming out, and you just got a lot of young people running around with cell phones, and who knows what's in there and who knows what's going on. And
none of it's getting deleted.
And none of it's getting... Yeah,
all of it's getting saved.
I don't disagree with you there. It's all going in a server somewhere.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have these mass leaks and you have everything else that goes on, and it all ends up spilling out into the street, so to speak.
When I was in the WWE... a lot of divas got their cloud, their personal phone, their cloud hacked. And pictures just came off the internet. Like, come on. If you don't think that's going to happen to them, you don't think that your stuff's getting saved?
Oh, of course it is. And that goes without saying. But there will be a book written, I'm sure, on this whole COVID thing, just like I'm sure somebody in the pedo community, a lot of this stuff. And Netflix is getting, just to put a cap on that, Netflix is getting absolutely decimated because of this whole thing. And I do think...
I'm trying to help with that.
Well, I do think Hollywood, that curtain's been lifted, and I think it's going to be very hard to put that monkey back in the box, so to speak, because you just have too much coming out. It's really, you could rattle off story after story after story, and there's just too much. And it's, the more you hear, the more terrifying it is. Like, what's the guy from the movie Seven? What's his name? The guy who was in Nantucket trying to grab the kid. He's in like 17 courts right now. He was just on a show. Let me look up his name. The stuff that's coming out about him is absolutely terrifyingly scary. But you see these things come out and you hear about these things, and the scariest part is we're not shocked.
Well, the funny part is back
Kevin Spacey.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
Kevin Spacey.
He looks like a weirdo.
Yeah, but like that's like third page news.
I know. It's insane.
Compared to what's coming out.
With the murder hornets.
Like, we're not even like moved by that. We're like, okay, so like he's up on like 3 charges of 3 different things and like little boys and all this stuff, and it's like he's done some lives and stuff. Like, in their mind, they don't think they did anything wrong.
No, of course not. Because he thinks he's playing a movie.
That's actually a good point. I mean, that's terrifying.
I swear, they're in scenes. They're in actors. They don't care. I'm going to tell you something about Vegas, and it correlates to all this. I'm not going to mention names. A lot of people have money, hosts in general, all right? And the host industry with the nightclub industry, they see the hottest women, the celebrities, whales, princes, princesses, all that. And they get money thrown at them, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. And a lot of these people, they start to question their gender and question their life. And there's been suicides because they have all this abundance of materialistic beauty, and they're still not internally happy. And that is very common with people with a lot of money and celebrities, because you always have to chase the next best thing.
Well, everybody wants a back room,
right.
Another back room.
And you're not appreciating what's in front of you.
Yeah, and I said this last night watching the Nexium thing, the Vow. I think what it comes down to is everybody wants to create a bigger back room. Like, it starts out with everybody's doing coke in the bathroom and like, okay. And then it's like, we're in the VIP. And then it's like, where's the after party? But everybody wants like that additional back room where it gets weird. Before long, it's fucking wife swapping and weird orgies. And I'm not here to judge anybody's lifestyle. It's not what I'm judging. If that's what gets you going and it's legal, whatever. But you have to recognize the pitfalls and everything else that come with it, because like you said,
double-sided sword.
It's a double-sided sword. And preparing where it's incredibly unscrupulous and terrible is when people get pulled into it that really don't fully understand what they're getting pulled into. And if you watch, like I said, that show, particularly as it speaks to the Epstein thing and everything else that's going on. Or people with
past trauma.
Exactly.
Because that's where you get real wrapped in with stuff. Like some people I know,
they do it willingly.
They do it willingly, like it's a one-time thing, like no big deal. I got to try it out. Cool, don't like it, do like it, whatever. But there are some people that have past trauma that when they can't mentally recognize what they're doing or why they need to be doing it. Like, it's fulfilling a void that they needed to have, and then they're down this bad path. They end up in drugs, or they end up
dependent.
Yeah.
It becomes a dependency.
That's that fine line, man.
And that's where, like, the Epstein thing, like what he was preying on was he was giving these girls like $200 for
and they said that too.
A weird massage. Like,
yeah,
and that's like the gateway drug was they were down on their luck. That was like all the money in the world to them.
They look for these traumatized people.
100%. Listen, it's been an hour and a half.
I know, I could talk forever.
It's good, though. Listen, we needed an episode like this. What about the gun thing?
You know
More
what?
ammo?
Yeah, I need more ammo. I just, this is the thing that people don't understand. Just because I have an AR, because everyone's like, that's like too much.
I saw that when you posted that.
They're like, that's too much. You have an AR, a handgun. You know what? Like, you want to be able to learn how to use every gun. So having it it starts out to be protection, ends up being like a hobby. You know, we're not going to go and start shooting off heads with 500 rounds. We're here, we want to go practice. You need ammo to practice. You know, you want to see what gun fits you the best. You know, what feels the best.
You enjoy it too. You enjoy the sport of it. It's okay.
Like, people are like, oh, well, how did your kids get it? You know what? It's called gun safety. You learn it. You teach it. You be aware of it. Yeah, you live it. I want to learn how to put on a tourniquet. I want to be able to learn how to do medical stuff. I want to be certified in things. Like, I'm not just going to have a gun just to have a gun. I want to know everything about it. It's information, it's knowledge, like, learn about it. Don't go, but that's the thing. People that don't know about anything, whether it's guns, whether it's medical,
bad.
They just want to say it's horrible.
I just want to say none of the guns on the wall behind Christina jumped off the wall and killed anybody today.
Again, it's the person, not the tool.
The host.
It's the person, not the tool.
It's the terrain.
I can say that that's a different thing, but I can take a hammer and I can build a house with it, or I could take a hammer and I can kill somebody with it. Once again, it's the person.
It's true. No, you're right. You're not wrong.
So if the person is just a bad person, they're gonna do bad things. You know, if I might not be able to get a gun, but I want to do a bad thing, I'm gonna get a gun somehow, some way. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, everyone's like, oh, it's because of the gun. No, you should be happy that we're able to get guns. Now, granted, I feel maybe some gun laws should change where, like, if you get a gun, they make you go through, you know, a 5-day process of you learning gun safety. Like, I'm all for that.
I think we're all for whatever law gets put in place as safe gun owners within reason.
Agreed.
Within reason. Let everybody know where they can find you, how they can reach you, and what you have going on that they should be paying attention to.
Okay, so if you don't know me, you can reach me on my Facebook page, which is C Vargas 26, or my Instagram page, which is Christina Vargas. I have a YouTube, haven't used it in a while. I have a website, ChristinaVargas.net. I blog sometimes. I always talk about health. I'm in the process of writing a book on my own recipes, healthy recipes, and on nutrition, understanding how to eat properly, basically, because I'm super crazy about chemicals and all those things and how they affect the body, obviously, because of my illnesses that I've have. And basically right now what I'm doing is I basically teach people how to eat. So people pay me I would say not for diets, because I don't believe in giving somebody
nutritional
a diet.
consulting.
Yeah, basically a nutritional consultant. Like, I'm going to teach you how to change your lifestyle. Basically, that's...
Yeah, you were talking to me about some of that. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Really.
I want to inform people on food and internal health. Like, I think that's what, you know, we can get our... What's the word for it? That's the Lyme disease, by the way. Just letting you know, this whole...
Well, I think it's about helping people find zero.
Yeah.
Honestly, the baseline, their health. Gut health's a huge thing. I got to get better at it, but there's certain things I won't give up.
Second brain. Mm-hmm. You know what the funny thing is, and that's another thing people need to learn? You can't give everything up altogether. You have to learn about it. You got to do little things.
I can't give up my pizza.
I didn't give up pizza. You just make it healthier. You do something. You just have to, it's little things. You invite little things, little habits in your life. It's like people when they work out. They're not going to be able to be a bodybuilder overnight. They got to do little things to get there. They can't shock the body. Same thing. It's little things. And for people to make you feel bad because you're not at that level yet is something, you know, you should really take those people out of your life. You know, no one should make fun of anybody because they haven't reached that level yet. We're all learning together, you know?
Tighten up that circle.
Yeah, we're all learning together. I'm still learning. Like I'm not a doctor. I'm still learning.
Listen, this was amazing.
Well, thank you.
It really was. I had a good time. I mean, catching up, it's been overdue for us.
If anybody wants to hear if we should have another podcast.
Yeah, no, put that out there.
Leave it down there.
Yeah, put it out there.
I said some things and he's like, that's another podcast.
It
That's
is.
another podcast.
Look, we could spend a whole day on the nutrition alone. And the pedo stuff, forget it. That's days. Now, I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate you coming out.
Of course.
I'll put your links down below. Everybody can go check it out. I think this was cool. She is going to be training, going to be running around, getting up to snuff, cleaning the guns. Pay attention.
Yes, I'm getting really into the gun stuff. So any sponsors,
Anybody out there?
I'm here.
She's interested. Ammo especially.
Ammo.
You and everybody else. But in all seriousness, it's fun to catch up with you. And I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll do it again. Well, of course we will. I mean, most of the local folks anyway. But we go back a while, you and I, and that's the scary part, is we go back so far. I mean, fuck. I mean, I'm talking about walking the streets way back. Now,
Taking the train.
oh, all of it. All of it. So, it's terrifying, but almost 20 plus years.
Even our high school didn't even last that long.
It's true. That's true. It's scary, but it's true.
Shit.
So this was awesome. I want to thank the sponsors. Got to thank everybody. I want to thank Gallo Tech, Rhino Metals, of course, Galco Holsters, Galco Leather. Go check them out. Blackwater Ammunition, Right On Optics, and everybody else I list down below. Go check those companies out. Appreciate it. When you thank the sponsors, it goes a long way, guys. I do want to make everybody aware Microtech Knives is doing some crazy sale thing Saturday. Go check him out. Go see Jason McCoy. He's doing some weird online thing. It's going to be pretty fucking cool. He's going to get a lot of cool knives. And I want to take a minute and shout out Bruce Cardenas, formerly of Quest. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Bruce. So if you listen, Bruce, happy birthday. Appreciate you. I appreciate Christina coming on.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And leave a review. If you get a minute, iTunes, I could use them. Trying to build up the reviews. And to everybody else out there that wants to hear more about Christina, as I said, I'll put some of the links down below. Go check her out. She's got a badass Facebook and, of course, Instagram. And we talked a little bit about getting her more active on YouTube. I think that's coming. So
He's going to teach me his ways.
I don't have any ways. Just get on there and just record. I have no ways. Thanks, everybody. And give me a moment, if you all will, to thank I want to thank my whole team that comes in here endlessly to do hours and hours of work getting the studio together. Everybody that's helped, including Gallo Tech, Pink Box, everybody. It means a lot. That's why thanking the sponsors is so important. Appreciate you guys.